If you have thought that your job as stepmom is going to get exponentially easier when the kids are out of the house, or if you think marrying someone with adult kids is going to be a lot easier than marrying someone with small kids, today's episode is for you. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, stepfamily life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Welcome. Today we are welcoming back Mindy Kyle, who has been a guest before. She's also spoken at several of our Stepmom Summits, and she is a Stepfamily Coach Academy graduate and has built an amazing business helping stepmoms everywhere. I am so excited to welcome her back. I always love talking to Mindy, and we have a great discussion for you today all around, we're talking about our experiences, as early stepmoms, and then talking about, different stages that kids are in, but really talking a lot about how stepfamily life impacts them as adults. And if you enjoy this episode, hop over to YouTube because we have a little bonus for you. Mindy and I went over there after we finished recording and had a little discussion about coaching as a business and launching and kind of getting over some of the scary things. And it's a really great discussion if you've ever thought about coaching or are just curious how it all works. So the details will be in the show notes, or you can head over to YouTube and just search Stepfamily Solutions. But before we get to Mindy, I want to tell you about her. Mindy is a certified parenting with purpose and certified stepfamily coach with over 16 years of experience specializing in the step-parent experience. She became a stepmom to 4 kids in her 20s and understands all of the unique challenges and complexities that come with the step-parent role. She draws from her own personal struggles as a stepmom and years of education and research, and is dedicated to helping other stepmoms navigate their roles with confidence and offering them tools and insights to move beyond their struggles and create deeper, lasting connections. She's a fabulous coach, and I'm super excited for this discussion. So let's dive in. Mindy, I'm so excited to have you back. This is so fun.
I love it. Thank you for inviting me back. I always love coming on your podcast.
Yes, of course. You're one of my faves. It's been a minute. We have a lot of new listeners, and I know I always like to, hear stepmom origin stories. And you have a good one because you are young. I mean, you're younger than I am, so I'd say you're young. But you are also a step grandmother. So you got a really interesting origin story. So give it to me.
Yeah, it is. It's super interesting. I feel like it always turns heads when I show up to events and I've got grandbabies, and I just turned 41 this year. So yeah, I came into this at 24 years old, and my husband, there's an age gap relationship, and he had 4 kids. And my oldest stepson was 15 turning 16. My youngest of the 4 was 6. And then we had 2 in the middle. And so there was a wide range of kids. There was a complicated dynamic with his ex. And I was young and had no kids, had never been married. So I was really just kind of naive and very enthusiastic about what this could look like coming in. I was madly in love. Did not plan on this as being my trajectory in life, but here,
Totally.
I found myself there, right?
Yeah.
And was going to make the best of it. And I learned really quickly that I knew nothing about the stepmom experience, how to successfully, I guess you could call it blend, even though I wasn't bringing in any kids and I hadn't been married, but I was still coming into the family. So I consider that blending. I really didn't know anything about raising children, specifically raising stepkids. So there was such a steep learning curve for me. And I tell everyone that about 7 years in, I hit a brick wall. I hit it really hard and really fast. And I found myself dealing with really honestly what I would describe as severe anxiety. I couldn't seem to regulate it. I couldn't manage it. Nothing I was doing was making things better. In fact, a lot of things I was doing or attempting to do were making things much worse in
Uh-huh.
my family dynamic. There was a lot of shame that I was carrying, a lot of blame, and it was sort of like this turning point in my life where it was either we figure this out and I get some serious help, or it's going to end in divorce really quickly because
Yeah.
I couldn't continue on the trajectory and the experience I was having on a daily basis in my stepmom roles. I ended up going on a kind of like a soul searching retreat. It was in Sedona and it was booked at a last minute kind of like last ditch effort to survive and try and figure this out. And that was the turning point. There was nothing real I guess, eye opening that happened on that trip other than it just started this process in which I was really thinking about my role. I was really thinking about the kind of life I wanted to live. I was really thinking about specifically accountability. What was my part in this? What did I need to take accountability for? I hadn't caused the high conflict, but I was definitely participating in self-blame, lack of boundaries, expectations that weren't realistic. I was putting a lot of pressure on my family, the people within my family to operate a certain way, to look a certain way, to behave a certain way, to blend a certain way. I expected a certain level of closeness. I had to take accountability for that because that wasn't realistic or fair to everyone else in this family. And so there was just a lot of introspection that had to happen. And then that started me on this path of research, therapy, reading books, all of the things I could get my hands on. And to where we are today, we've almost been married 17. I have 4 grandbabies. I have another one that's on the way next month. And so and we have 2 kids of our own that are teenagers and really getting ready to launch themselves. So we've kind of been through it all, honestly.
Yeah, you really have. And I think every stepmom listening to you talk about your experience has got to be like nodding along because all of the things that you talked about are things that I think are so common in the stepmom experience. And I mean, the reality is, and I think nobody, I always say to people, like, you're marrying someone with kids, but you don't know what that's going to be like, right? And you have to approach stepmom life with so much more intention than a first family does. And I think that's something that catches all of us off guard that, like, how are we supposed to know that we need to sit down and figure out our role? That's a
Yeah.
complicated thing to do on the front end, You're like picking out wedding dresses and figuring out how you're going to live together,
Yeah. And it's so much more complex than I think any of us could ever anticipate. Even if you grow up in a blended family, you're growing up you're playing a different role. So if you grew up in a blended family, you're the child in the blended family. And though that's valuable in many ways to have that insight, it's still not the same. And so
100%.
even if you grew up in a blended family, you are still going to find yourself confused at times, alarmed by things, uncertain. It's tough to come in and start to shape this role when we really don't have any experience truly understanding how complex a step parent role is. And another thing I will say is oftentimes people try and model it after a parent role and think that that's the healthiest route to take. And it's often not. And so we find ourselves sort of getting ourselves down this road of doing all the things we think we should. Halfway down the road, we're like, wait, this is actually not great. This is not working. I'm seeing a lot of pushback. I'm seeing relationships fall apart. I'm burned out. Okay, what now? Crap, I'm already halfway down the road. What do I do now? I just pivot and go back? Or, that's a hard place to find yourself.
It really is. And I think that so much of, step family life is, as you said, unexpected. Even if, like, I did grow up in a blended family, I had a stepmom. We've had a tricky relationship for 40 years now, but I kind of came into it thinking like, okay, well, I know how the kids feel. I can empathize with them. I'll have a leg up. No. I still was an absolute mess. I mean, there's no real preparation. And I think that your words they encapsulate the experience so well. I think so. It's so common. And I'm sure you get this with your clients too, when you're talking this through with a stepmom and she's like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one that felt like that. I'm so glad to know that other people feel like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of internalized shame for stepmoms. so much of it. And I think just the dynamic of a blended family sort of naturally maybe creates that for her because she feels already like an outsider. And there's a lot of fingers that can be pointed at her from maybe an ex or the kids because she's the new component, right?
Yep,
She's the new
totally.
puzzle piece. And so it's easy to look at the new person as the problem because, oh, well, now you're here and now we're having all these problems. So you must be the source of the problem, right? But sometimes, I mean, I don't want to say that's never not true because sometimes we come in and we do cause problems unintentionally because we're not educated or informed or we are well intentioned and the results that we may create are two different things. Intentions and impact are separate, right? And you may be well intentioned and have a negative impact. I think that's okay. There doesn't need to be shame around that as long as you become aware and you start to shift your perspective and the way you show up. But yeah, I think stepmoms coming in, it's easy for them to be the target of a lot of that blame. And so when we do,
100%.
we become the target, we internalize it, and then we start to feel gaslit. Like, are we the problem? Are we the only reason things aren't working out?
Yeah.
And I actually don't think that's true in most circumstances. I actually think there needs to be space and change created when a stepmom comes in naturally. And that doesn't make her a bad person, but it just, we have to create an environment where she can thrive. And so, yeah, it's really challenging.
Yeah, it really is. Let's talk about teens because you've got 2 right now and you've had 4 before that have come through the house. When we got married, I had 1 teen and then the rest were in that tween, preteen. And so I've seen that through too. Let's discuss. Teens are
Yeah.
hard. And I have so many stepmoms that I work with that are like, I'm having this issue with, the step family and the kids don't like me. And it's because the step family dynamic. And I'm like, let's pause. Is it the step family dynamic or is it that they're teens? Because teens are tough.
Teens are a wild ride. They really, really are. And it was funny because I just had a call with a new stepmom client yesterday, and she has been in their life since they were around 7 and 9, and now they're 18 and 15. And she's really feeling like she's been pushed out. And even though she has spent so much time building a foundation, a relationship with these kids, it's like it kind of switched overnight for her. And then immediately she starts to blame herself. Immediately it's like, what have I done wrong? There's a lot of fear that comes up for stepmoms. I'm losing them. I'll
Yes.
never get them back. What do I do? I then panic and a little bit of this needy energy happens. And it's kind of a vicious cycle because one thing we do know about teenagers, and I have talked to all my adult stepkids about this, which I'm sure they love because I just pick and prod at them. Tell me all of the things about your experience, but they're great sports. But one of the things I do know is that teenagers are, it's polarizing to have somebody who shows up with a needy energy. They do not like it.
No.
And they're very attuned to the energy you're bringing to these relationships. So one, don't think that they don't know because they know. They know. They know if you are desperate for their attention or their approval or their time. And I know it's a tough position because if you are naturally feeling desperate, it's very hard to not feel desperate, for that to not be conveyed in the interactions. But it's just about doing the inner work. It's about cleaning all that up, talking it through with somebody you trust or your therapist or a coach so that you can make sense of it. Then you show up a little more clean, a little more grounded so that they don't pick up on that needy energy. I always say embody cat-like energy, not dog. You don't be a lab with your young adults.
I love that.
They do not like it. Like they come through the door and you're like, oh, hi, I haven't seen you for 3 weeks. I'm so excited to see you. They're going to be like, okay,
Yeah.
whoa. Like,
Back
please.
off a little lady.
Yeah, that's way too much. I don't need you in my face. Be the cat that sits in the corner of the room, looks cute, shows up occasionally, let them approach you. There's that type of approach is much more conducive to the teen energy and brain. Yeah, I think that's the approach.
I think one of the nice things about teens, and again, it depends. I mean, everybody's relationship with their stepkid is different, right? So this is not blanket, but sometimes you can have conversations with them that you couldn't have when they were younger. They are very self-absorbed. We know this. It's their developmental stage, but when you can catch them in a moment, right? Like, I love being able to have the conversations and be a little, you're not being lab-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're being a little more transparent, like, "Hey, I'm picking up on this," or even like, "Hey, I wish that we had done this differently."
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this? And
Yeah.
have some more kind of open conversations. I mean, I love having the conversations around like, "Hey, I know this is hard for you. Do you want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it? I know this dynamic, like this going back and forth kind of sucks. It really sucks when you forget your lacrosse equipment and you've got to go over to mom's house and get it, or we have to go get it. And I know that must be frustrating, and have some of those more open conversations where like it gives them a chance to have some push pull, you know what I mean? And to
Yeah.
have a more adult relationship that's different than mom or dad.
Yeah. Yes. I 100% agree with that. And I think that's where your superpower lies as a step parent. A lot of times we get so hung up in this space of, I don't feel like I have any authority with these kids and I feel like I can't correct them or change behavior or implement consequences. And so you feel like you're out of control and it feels like such a loss for so many step parents. And I get that. But there are real bonuses to not playing that role. There's a flip side. The flip side is I always say, don't be a mother, be a mentor. Be their mentor, be their
Mhm.
friend. You really have an opportunity to see these kids differently than their parents do, and vice versa. The kids have an opportunity to see you differently than they see their parents.
Mhm.
And instead of looking at it like it's such a negative thing that we don't have biology and early attachment, great. Okay. But also, they might confide in you before their parents because they don't have biology and attachment. They're not so worried about what you think about them like mom and dad. That's a bonus in some ways. I remember with a lot of, teens have drama. They have real, life problems that start to creep in the high school years. Sometimes heavier
Yeah.
problems than we would like, but it's reality. And I remember many different times my stepkids would confide in me before their dad or mom
Mhm.
because they knew that I was not going. One, they don't have to impress me because I'm not putting that pressure on them.
Right.
They don't have that innate desire to make sure that we have a bond, right? Because
Yeah.
biology plays a strong role in them needing approval from a bio parent. So that also leads them to sometimes holding back and not
Mhm.
telling the truth, right? Because they're afraid of them being disapproved of. But for a step parent, yeah, you might not have that. And that kind of sucks sometimes, but it's also amazing because they might come to you and share things and tell you what's going on in their life
Mhm.
because they don't care as much. And they might see you as a mentor so that you can actually say, hey, they're going to listen. This is what I would have done in high school. I had drama like that too. Or boys are stupid. Stop dating them. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, it's great for you to use that as an opportunity to really connect with them in those moments if you play it right.
Yeah, you can kind of be a soft place for them to land. I remember saying to my stepdaughter at some point, we were talking about the dynamic and I was kind of doing what I just talked about. And I was like, look, I know this is hard. I know that like there are probably times you wish your parents never got a divorce. And like that does not hurt my feelings. I know how
Hmm.
that, I had that too. But the cool thing is like you and I get to figure out what our relationship looks like. And so
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have to decide now, that evolves, but like we get to figure that out, not your mom, not your dad, because I'm not either one of them.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
kind of a
No,
nice spot to be with a teenager. And they may
it
not
is.
always be open to that. Uh,
Hmm.
but I've talked to stepmom clients that get really nervous about, we don't have that biological connection. And so I think for a lot of stepmoms, they put pressure on themselves because you kind of always know in the back of your head that because we don't have that biological connection, the stepkid always has that choice of
Hmm.
disconnecting with us. So I talk to a lot of women that ends up putting pressure on them because they start worrying about like, well, what if they go to college and don't want a relationship with me? What's going to happen when they get married? Are they going to like shunt me to the side at the wedding? What do I do at graduation? Like all of these things that are so far out of their control, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, what do you talk about with
Hmm.
your clients? Because I know that has to come up with your clients too.
It does. I think I always look at it like I want to give you, all my clients, anyone that I talk to, a realistic viewpoint, right? And I also want to kind of take away the power from these like fear mongering, like fear
Yeah.
cycles that we find ourselves in. The worst thing could happen. That's the truth. Like, yes, I work with so many clients that don't have relationships with teen
Mhm.
stepkids, adult stepkids, but so do bio parents. Like,
Right.
let's even the playing field. There are plenty of relationships with adult kids and adult parents that are not good, that are not close. So this isn't necessarily unique to the stepmom experience, but it's a possibility. Yes. Okay. And I think a lot of times we connect our worth to that relationship. We connect how good of a person we are, the job we did, whether or not we were able to be happy in life, to whether, we have a close relationship with these kids. And if they want to come back and participate in our home life, have relationships with us, whatever.
Which is crazy because ultimately we're putting our happiness in the hands of something that we have zero control over.
Yeah.
Zero.
And the truth is, like, the reality is sometimes these kids grow up and they're not the people we want in our lives. I just want to put it out there. Like, you don't need to define your success by the relationships that you have with the people in your life. Yes, that's part of our life. And I do encourage healthy relationships, obviously, and invest in them. But if it comes at such a severe cost to your mental health, then that's not how we should determine your success.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be a level of awareness around, one, how much value am I placing in this scenario on my worth and my happiness when I cannot control an ounce of it? Well, maybe you can control a portion of it, right? Because you're going to invest. I think investing is great. But one, do you want a relationship with them?
Yeah.
Do you want a relationship with your adult stepkids? That's the first question. If so, and invest strategically and then allow for them to have autonomy too. If they have a life, they get to decide. As soon as those kids move out and build their own lives, I think this applies to any adult children. My history is I have a very complex relationship with my bio parents, I'm adopted. So my parents that raised me. And there were years of estrangement and real strong boundaries. As an adult child, I feel strongly that they get to choose if they want a relationship with you or not.
Uh-huh.
And so we have to respect that. Sometimes that's because you struggle with maybe awareness or boundaries yourself or respecting who they are as people and that they're building their lives. Sometimes it's their own stuff and it has nothing to do with you. Regardless of what it is, you have to mentally be okay with either scenario.
Yeah.
That's the first place we need to go. And then strategically look at what is within my control. I know this is like said all over the internet, right? And it gets so annoying to hear it, but truthfully, invest where you can and then let go of the rest. That's it. There's nothing else you can do. If they don't want a close relationship, that's not anything that you need to be responsible for. Worry about. You got to let go. Live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought up the adult stepchildren thing because I know a lot of stepmoms and parents think two things. One, if they're marrying someone who has adult kids, they're like, oh, well, he's got kids, but it's fine. They're adults. They don't need them. Or that, the kids grow up and they think, well, they're out of high school. They're out of college. I'm done. Tell me why both of them are involved.
Gosh, that's so loaded.
I know, right? Sorry.
In the last so minutes good. We have. It's so good. Okay. I will go back to a little bit to my experience. My dad got remarried when I was 18, turning 19. It was like a whirlwind. They had a romance. They had a very short dating period, and then he brought her in. My relationship with my dad was complex, so there was that piece of it. But I was this kid who came into it really being like, I could care less. You go get married. I was so self-assured. I thought there's no way I will ever be bothered by my dad getting remarried. And I will tell you this story because it still is so funny to me that I had no clue how jarring this would be for me. So I had never met her. My dad kind of did some shady stuff. So you'll catch on to that. He didn't do it well. We'll just say that. I'd never met this woman. He invited me to their reception. I show up to their reception and I was just kind of like cavalier. It's fine. Whatever. Great. You're getting married, Dad. That's awesome. And I remember they did a toast and he kissed her. And I remember my stomach fell like out of the floor.
Yeah.
And I was this confident, self-assured kid who wanted my parents to get divorced because they were not getting along. It was a horrible home environment. I thought I would be completely fine. And I had never seen my dad kiss anyone but my mom. And I remember it was so jarring for me.
Yeah, it's gutting.
It was so hard. It shocked me. It still shocks me to this day just because I was so blindsided by it. So I say that to say this. It is still a challenging dynamic for adult stepkids to see their parents get remarried. It just because they're adults does not mean that they won't have complex feelings. And it's really my belief after my experience and talking to many other family dynamics is that as a kid that grows up, anything to do with your parents or your family life, oftentimes you'll find yourself reverting. So with my dad, immediately I was like a little girl again. Even though I was, 18, 19 almost, I was a little girl in that moment. And there's so much of that kind of being brought back into that younger self that gets triggered in these blended families. So oftentimes with these older kids, you will find, I hear from stepmoms a lot, like, well, they're, 21. They should get over this. They're 21. They're an adult. They should act like an adult. And I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying in theory, but this triggers a part of them that really is that child self. And so you might see some territorial nature with kids. You might see some big emotional reactions that aren't necessarily feeling warranted or appropriate for their age or whatever. That is normal. That's normal. And we have to create space for that as step parents and allow for them to have their process. I definitely had my process with...
And there's still a loss with adult kids, right? It could be a situation where mom or dad has been divorced for a while and has been relying on the kids for advice and guidance and, talking to them about big decisions. And all of a sudden they have a new partner and they're not talking to the kids about stuff. And there's a loss there for the kids. I mean, they feel that even though they're grown-ups, and we like to think that everybody should be able to handle their stuff. You're right. It triggers and it just doesn't work. It's not that clean.
No, it's not that clean. And they're experiencing it for the first time too. They don't have a roadmap for this either. And so I think grace can go a long way. I know it's really hard when you feel like you're being attacked or targeted or things aren't going the way you thought they would, but it's because people didn't expect this. They didn't expect it. You didn't expect it. And we have to create a lot of space for that unexpected emotion that might come up.
Totally. My in-laws had been divorced for like 20 years and they both got remarried the same summer Craig and I got married. And I will say, like, we were forming all kinds of blended families that summer, but they both married the most lovely people. Like, I really hit the in-law jackpot. But they both, in their separate lovely ways, did a wonderful job of talking to all the kids about it and reassuring them. And because I think there weren't really a lot of Craig didn't really have any concerns, but I think that there can be concerns for kids, particularly when it comes to thinking about estate planning. But having some open conversations about, like, well, Johnny, we're getting a prenup, so you don't need to worry about that. And just like call the elephant out,
Yeah. And I think a lot of times you have to remember that the longer that the kids have been operating a certain way, like holidays, family vacations, birthdays, those things are very ingrained into the culture and the DNA of this family. That's hard to shift. And there's a lot of fear around, well, what's going to change? And I always say, anytime the question comes up, doesn't matter how old the kids are, whether they're young or old, let's address the things that aren't going to change. That first needs to come out. So when we're having hard conversations, the thing I always love to start with, even with my own stepkids, is I just want you guys to know this is not going to change. Here's what's going to stay the same, because that tends to put people at ease. Like, okay, Christmas is going to stay the same.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, we're still going to do the Cabo family vacation every year. That's so important to me. Like, that's a memory that we've had for 20 years. I just wanted to know that this new person coming in isn't going to change that.
Yeah.
That's so important. Address those things early on so that they know what to expect moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. As always, I could talk about this stuff forever, but thank you so much for all of this insight. I think that you bring such a valuable background and experience to coaching. Tell everybody where they can find you, and then we'll drop all your links in the show notes.
Thank you for having me. This is always such a pleasure. You can find me at Mindy Kyle Coaching on all platforms. So just across the board and on my website at mindykylecoaching.com.
Easy peasy. Love it. Mindy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cameron.
If this episode spoke to you or touched your heart, would you do me a favor? Take 10 seconds to go and follow the show, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with another stepmom who might need to hear it. Your support is going to help grow our blended family community, and you never know whose life you might change.